we should just uh, start off because we have juggernauts that should take their time to tell us how we got where we are. Yeah, so I'll start with the former Vice President, uh, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar. Thank you very much.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to start with an apology for missing the opening ceremonies because I had just arrived early this morning from Europe and therefore needed a little bit of time to rest. And now I would like to take us back to the history of political parties to be able to really understand their respective roles, in the years. First of all, the issue nowadays of political parties started in the late 80s. Then the main objective was to drive away the military. I spent most of my political career in forming political parties. First of all, to send away the military and return the country to democracy. And then the second phase is what we are today discussing, the role of political parties in governance. And I can tell you that when the establishment of political parties started in order to send away the military, I was in the forefront together with the late Shehu Yaradua. Basically, main objective was, look, we got to send the military out of governance. Of course, we were played around by the military several times. We formed political parties. They will dissolve them. And then eventually, we ended up with two political parties set up by the military themselves, the SDP and NRC. Of course, our own political wing, which was the People's Front of Nigeria, formed an alliance with PSP, and we came into the SDP. And these were the two political parties, the SDP and the NRC, that now fought the military out of power, and then power was handed over to the civilians or the supposedly democratic parties. Now, since getting into power, the role of political parties have evolved, in some cases changed, in some cases for the good of the country, and in some cases for the bad of the country. But I think we have come to the peak of the crisis as far as the role of political parties is concerned today. And I hope the deliberations in this conference will lead to the re-examination of the role of political parties in providing good governance. We have listened to a number of challenges facing the political parties currently and how to go about getting those challenges resolved. For sure, some of these challenges have moved from political parties to governance. Now, governance dictates political parties. We should have been the reverse. We should have been the political parties, of course, directing governance on what should be done, because that is their role. They interact with ordinary people, they go into campaigns, they live with ordinary people, and so on and so forth. I think our main challenge in this conference or seminar is to see how the National Assembly, through various laws and legislation, can play a role in making sure this objective is achieved. Sometimes last year, I sat down with some of my advisors and lawyers, and we crafted amendments to the Electoral Act that is currently in operation. And I sent it to the National Assembly. I signed it, sent it to the Committee on Constitutional Amendments as far as the Electoral Act is concerned. But I know for sure that they are not going to make use of those recommendations I made, because I made them in good faith, and I made them to strengthen actually the political parties and the electoral process. And with the current National Assembly, I don't see them adopting most of the recommendations I made. So what next? What do we do? Like somebody said here, we have a National Assembly that is more of a rubber stamp, to the government. But I refuse to agree. It all depends on us. The example I will want to cite here is last year's election, Turkey's presidential election. President Erdogan has been in power for 20 years in Turkey. And the last presidential election, because of the credibility and integrity of the electoral process, after the first ballot, Erdogan scored 49.5%. And the Constitution requires him to score at least 50%. The second guy came with 4%, and the third with less than 2%. And the Electoral Commission refused to declare Erdogan as president. Those of you, of course, when we were in either primary or secondary school, we were taught that if you have 49.5, you round it up to 50. Not so. But, yes, but the Electoral Commission of Turkey refused to round it up and give Erdogan a victory. They insisted on a run-up. And when they had the run-up, the man who got 4% supported Erdogan. Believe me, I was watching 24 hours. When the second result came out, Erdogan won by the 4% that was given to him by the person who came second. Now that is the credibility of an electoral process. Do we have the same thing here? Like somebody said, it is the court now who declares our candidates or winners, not the people. So we really are at a crossroads, on this democratic experiment. We either decide we want to be democratic, or we decide to abandon it. So I believe that this seminar or conference is germane, is important, is historic, but we cannot leave this place without really marshalling out, a proposed action plan on how to get our Electoral Act amended and how to return the rights of the Nigerian people to elect whom they want to elect, not for the courts to determine who they have elected. I think I will stop here with my opening remarks on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think it's time for us to listen to the former governor of Kaduna State. I believe he would have his own perspective on running a political party in Nigeria. Thank you. As a foundation member of the APC, yes. It was a coup and they carried it off.
Thank you, distinguished Senator, Her Excellency, former Vice President. If you look at the program, you'll see that I'm not supposed to be on this panel. I was compulsorily drafted, and I want to say upfront that I am the least qualified person on the panel to speak about political parties because my experience in politics is limited, and my experience in forming or managing political parties is even more limited. I've been actively involved in only 2 political parties, all in the 21st century, unlike the former vice president who has been in this since the 20th century. I was very active in the CPC. I was one of the leaders of the CPC before we merged into the APC. And all I know about partisan politics comes from that experience. But I want to say that, political parties are very, very important. I did not realize this until I became politically active. Because in our constitution, the only way we can contest for power is on the platform of political parties. Our constitution does not recognize independent candidates, even though we tried in our APC Committee on True Federalism to recommend that the constitution be amended to allow independent candidates. That has not happened yet, and I don't even know if it will ever happen. So political parties remain important. But what is the state of political parties today? I will give my own views of what I have seen in the last 2 years. The PDP, which is one of the largest and perhaps the oldest political party in this republic, is clearly targeted for destruction. It's a matter of time. There are internal mercenaries in the PDP that have been hired, paid, or otherwise motivated to destroy the party. So the party is on its way to the grave. Okay? And it's most unfortunate because His Excellency, the former Vice President, was explaining how politicians came together, essentially, put aside their differences to drive away the military. Most of these politicians ended up in the PDP. So the PDP actually represented the best of our politicians that fought for restoration of democracy. Forget those that make the most noise, but ran away from the country. Those that went to prison, those that were detained, all ended up in the PDP. Those were the real politicians that faced the military. But today, none of the founding fathers of the PDP can recognize it. Labour Party, again, targeted for destruction. And it's almost certain. The last time I had a conversation with Peterobi himself, he admitted to me that he doesn't know what is happening in the party that he contested for president. So there seems to be a project to destroy all the opposition political parties. And the only option for the opposition, in my view, is to put aside their differences and come together and create a broad platform that will do the driving of the military again, because we are there almost. So, Your Excellency, we need your experience and skills. Now, I'm a founding member of the APC. If you go to INEC and ask for the form that got APC registered, I'm one of the 34 people that signed for it, and I was a founding member of the National Working Committee of the APC. But frankly, I no longer recognize the party. The party, no party organ of the APC has met for the past 2 years. No caucus, no NEC, nothing. I don't even know if it is a one-man show. It's a zero-man show. Okay. So, though I'm a founding member of the APC has left me behind. I'm still there where we were. We wanted to form a progressive party that will fight corruption, revamp the economy, and restore security to Nigerians. That was the objective of forming our party. And we all came from that party. After forming the party, we went out of our way to recruit others that we feel could add value to the party. We went to the residence of His Excellency Vice President Atiku Abubakar, invited him to join the party. We are not afraid of inviting heavyweights who are potential presidential aspirants, even though many of us were Buhari supporters. But we were not scared. We wanted a broad-based coalition that will address the problems of Nigeria, and we are successful in it. But why the APC today? I don't recognize it, as I said. It has left me behind. I still believe that the purpose of political contestation in Nigeria still remains revamping the economy, restoring security, and fighting corruption. The problems are still there. However, I no longer believe that my party believes in confronting those problems. So the distance between me and the APC is widening. It has left me, it's driving at very high speed away from where I am, but I remain where I am because these problems remain the living problems of Nigeria, and they have to be addressed. And the only way to address them is through the instrumentality of political party. So what happened to our parties? Why did our parties all end up where they are? When we started the APC, we were very hopeful that it will be member-financed party. We registered 15 million members. 15 million. If every member of the APC just gave the party 100 Naira, that's 1.5 billion. Just 100 Naira a month, which I believe almost everyone can afford. That's 1.5 billion. It's enough to run the party. We had aspirations of that nature. We had dreams of a real, ideologically driven, progressive political party. But today it is something else. If you look at the life cycle of the PDP, it was similar. They all end up becoming a one-man show. No collegiate leadership, no democratic leadership, no internal democracy. And the parties always get pocketed by those elected on the platform of the party. So if you look at what Professor Olukoshi outlined as the key issues to look out for in a party, ideology. What is the ideology of the APC? I don't know. We said we are progressive. But we are not progressive anymore. Okay? What about a societal project? What is our big societal project? I have mentioned the three. But now, if you ask people that were elected on the platform of the APC, they will say, I wanted to be governor, I wanted to be president, I wanted to. No, nobody talks about a national project, societal project anymore. It's about me. Me, myself, and I. What about manifesto? When was the last time you saw the manifesto of a political party in Nigeria? The last one I remember was the one we drafted in 2007 for the PDP. Okay? Since then, the PDP has never produced any manifesto. We did one at the formation of the APC, a very detailed one in 2015. But since then, nothing. The other parties, I don't even know. I haven't seen anything resembling a manifesto. What about membership? Members want to take from the party rather than contribute to the party. So we are in a serious crisis because these political parties are the vehicles through which leadership will emerge. Yet, they exist only on paper or in our imagination. And we must work. And this is a challenge for those in opposition. I'm not yet in opposition, by the way. I'm still in the APC. But this is a challenge to those in opposition. You must come together and form a party that, in my view, should closely resemble the NPN of the Second Republic. That's one political party that was an effective machine. The leadership was collegiate. The party imposed its will on those elected. It is unfortunate that it was terminated in 1983. Maybe by now we would have had a real political culture around collegiate, ideologically driven, and broad-based political parties. So this is the challenge for the opposition. I think I will stop here with my limited knowledge and experience in party formation and management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think you did well. And since you're not yet in opposition, we will wait until when you are there because you have to be one of the crafters of the next step. Can we have Dr. Ame? Hi, Chief Ame. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For me, I would like to speak from a perspective of somebody who has participated in party management in this country. I was two-time chairman, national chairman Interparty Advisory Council, 2 times general secretary. I work with some of my senior other ones here, to do a lot of things in trying to deepen democratic culture as it has to do with multi-party democratic system. What Nigeria has is a multi-party democratic system. And if you want to be able to capture what we have, you go to section 223 up to section 2210 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And it will explain to you how to form a political party, what you need to form a political party. You need a 2/3 in the state of the federation, executive members, what you need at the national headquarters. All these things are registered in the Constitution. People say we have enough laws to govern. Political parties are critical agent when it comes to democracy, especially when it comes to Nigeria, because there's no independent candidacy. So when you have a situation where section 223, subsection A and B, stipulate what a national officer of a political party should be, that you'll be elected for a 4-year time, and you'll be elected in the presence of INEC. You find out that INEC has overbearing cultural attitude towards the management of political party in Nigeria. Political party they don't want, they reprimand. The one they are friends to them that sing their praises, they support. These issues are there. You won't see them because if you are not in the game, you won't know how strong and how manipulative the power of the INEC chairman has been in curtailing the growth of multi-party democratic system in this country. So for us, we have come to see that for you to grow the culture of multi-party democracy, since you have no independent candidate for you to contest an election, political parties are beyond just a platform for contest of election. They drive inclusivity, they drive issues about the enlightenment of the electorate, and they're involved in a lot of educative seminars to be able to have members. You cannot have members of the political parties today. Why? Because the culture of money has been put before the electorate by those who have been able to hold power in the previous, whether it was the PDP and now whether it's the APC. Because when you go to the electorate in the rural community, like Mr. Lese said, and you are talking to them, I contested for House of Rep the last time, they'll tell you other parties are bringing money, why are you not bringing money, why are you explaining? So this culture of how can you now build parties that are being built today? If you register a party today, you cannot be able to, except a big name comes to take over that party. It has happened in Action Alliance when they went to Imo. They won almost all the House of Assembly. Action Alliance was not the party anybody knew. But in 2019, they won close to 18 House of Assembly members because how many members? 8, 10. The national chairman is here. They won like 10. This is a party that never won anything. You say, okay, let's say 8. A party that never won before and canvassed for a very long time. The only one where a strong man comes into those parties. You have a situation that 8, within the 2 weeks after they were declared winner, defected to another party without staying. So how do you have an organic process for building a multi-party cultural political system? You cannot. I was the national organizing secretary of PPA. when we had two governors, Ikedio Hakim and Theodore. By 2010, 2011, when the crisis broke us in the party and the two governors left, we could barely be able to pay the rent of the party headquarters in Otako. This is the problem, because when the culture of people putting hand into common coffers to manage political party, it weakens the other parties. But when you are governor, when you are president, you use the resources of state to strengthen your party. And when you come, maybe something happens, you go into opposition, then you start to educate people on how people must understand that the electorate must form political party. They must have registered members of the party that will be able to contribute financially to the sustenance of democratic culture in our country. We have a challenge, and if this challenge are true, it all becomes on us all to collectively work. I'm telling you how strong the INEC chairman is. In 2019, we formed what they call COP to be able to support opposition, anybody that emerges as opposition presidential candidate. By the time the election finished, almost the rest of the people who spearheaded that formation were in the police station, including me. Okay, you know, including me. I suffered throughout that process. So, and you cannot have that when the authority of state, whether it is directly from the presidency or for those who go to say, Oga want it, Oga say make them deal with them. Those who say that, and the apparatus of authority of defense or police cannot further interrogate those who bring that message and act upon it. So how do you allow a political party chairman? Today we have 19 political party. Political party cannot do without visibility. And visibility comes as a result of resources and people with high pedigree when they come to the political party. I came here today. I took a cursory look of people who were invited. I looked at the agenda when it was sent to me yesterday by His Excellency. And I discovered that it was only Ganduje that was on the list of people that will speak here today. When we have 19 political parties. 19. In fact, they will have a body that has been streamlined by INEC to be able to reach other political, which is called Interparty Advisory Council. The chairman was not even invited. So if you give visibility to these people, whether from media, whether for program seminars like this, what do you expect of other parties? And I disagree with people who say our parties does not have manifesto. You cannot form political party in Nigeria without submitting a register, a well-designed, well-written manifesto to the commission and the constitution of the party. But you cannot drive this process when you have not enough resources to be able to go around from pulling units from one community, one ward to the other. We cannot also build parties when we have an election that is not free, that is not fair, and that is not credible. How do I say this? We cannot go to election with you. You have 1 billion naira in your coffers, and I'm going to speak English to the people. And I don't understand how they will be able to understand that. And then we also go for election collectively with you. On the day of election in my community, a gun was put on my head because they said the deputy governor said that I have intention to do something else. So how do you escape this kind of challenge when state actors act even without any kind of respect to the right of the citizens of this country? So how do you now have to go to the same market to try to get people to participate in the process that has been enshrined by giving you authority by the constitution and then all the other subsidiary legislation made by INEC? And people talk about political party not being regulated enough. It is the fault of INEC. Because if you go to that section I told you about 223A, you find out that if you are going to conduct a convention within a political party, where you will remove somebody, where you will elect somebody, where you will appoint somebody, INEC must be present to see that processes are free, fair, and credible. But in most cases for bigger parties, INEC will let it ride. I cannot say today that if we go to INEC, we will see the letter written by APC for the Ganduje to be elected as president at the NEC meeting. I cannot say that today because I have my information, but I just keep that aside. So we cannot have a biased system that favors one and ignores the other. And then you expect a balanced and equitable society to flourish. We cannot say that if we must have an election where we must all go to the market and compete on equal basis, that we should have on a general election, we will have 2 days for conducting of election. You conduct for National Assembly and President, and 2 weeks later, you conduct for House of Assembly and House of Assembly and Governor. Do you know that after the declare of the result for the presidency is declared, my brother, honorable, you are in your community. Every other election will tailor towards the presidential election. The community village leaders will be telling you, let's align. My brother, don't worry, next time. They will be telling you all this. So if we must have a credible electoral system, we must amend, it's a must that we must amend section 132 subsection 2 Section 174, subsection 2, section 64, subsection 1, and section 105, subsection 1. What are these provisions? This, if we amend this provision of this, we will be able to consolidate our election into one day. Because people are talking that by-elections are very expensive. By-elections are very, I agree. But if we can solve the problem of conducting our election in one day, we will take away the cost of conducting election 2 times from INEC. And we will reduce the cost of our election by 50%. So why are we not taking that and giving 5 ballot papers? Because the trucks that will move the House of Assembly election, the truck that will move the governorship election, is the same truck that will move everything. So if you talk today that the voters, this thing is printed on the basis of registered voters, not on the basis of registered political parties. And that is why cost is not there for INEC. Then you now say that you cannot conduct all your elections in one day. Then you continue to weaken the opposition party because the government will have money for the second leg of the election, while the opposition will be running letter scatter to explain by preaching through the gospel or through whatever means they have to tell, please understand with me and forgive my shortcomings.
Thank you very, very much. That was a fairy session. Thank you very much. Doctor, that was a very fairy one. I think we should have the Niels professor now so that we can round up because we still have one more session after this. Oh, it's cancelled. Oh, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairman. All protocol duly observed. Let me start with, because of brevity of time, let me start with what ordinarily will be my concluding remarks. Expectations for our political parties to emerge as the cohesive, coherent, mass mobilization organization will not happen. It won't happen because the crisis of the political party, for me, is a reflection of our political culture. So short of addressing several other things, the political parties are just reflective of our prevailing political culture. And I say that for many reasons. To the extent that political parties are just platforms, to win power and election, of course they are going to remain the way they are. To the extent that political parties have this financial autonomy, from their membership, they don't need members to survive, because there are people, it will not be inclusive. They won't be, they don't need to mobilize. If the truth of the matter in Nigeria is that you don't need a manifesto to actually win an election. You don't. And it's a far cry from where we need to be. We are doing a lot of work with political parties, and what I want to see will be our political parties that will have a semblance of what Professor Lukoshi, referred to as, the A-Day of political party emancipation in this country. Where political parties will grow their membership organically, by their, their programs, their project inputs, where from the campuses, very idealistic, opinionated people can be drawn into membership of these political parties by what the political parties stand for. Recently, we did a study on the 19 political parties. We developed what is called the Political Party Performance Index. And one of the documents we looked at was were the manifestos of all the political parties. And what we found out, they were just a clone of each other. No difference. It's just one borrowing the manifesto of another political party, adding a few things, and that is it. So for our political parties to be the vibrant, viral platforms for debate, for driving development and governance, a lot needs to be done. I remember, as a student in the UK in the early 90s, we volunteered with the Labour Party, because the ideology resonated with us. Almost all African students were supporting Labour. Tony Blair emerged, and that was because they mobilized on campus. I've not seen any of our political parties, having open days, on campus, or, even the culture of volunteerism, does not even exist. Again, what we want to see with our political parties is that they need to be, development think tanks. I think PDP used to have the PDI. Short of that, I don't know of any other political party that has a think tank. And that is, of course, responsible for why we have people who have won political powers. They don't know what to do with it. So it becomes an end goal in itself, just win political power. When you get there, you'll be driven by the wind and all of that. The IRI we have here today, the International Republican Institute, is the think tank of the Republican Party. We have the NDI here, the National Democratic but I think the political society that Professor Lukoshi refers to, has a long, a big role to play. Our political parties will remain, what this class wants it to be. The emergence of people like David Blunkett, a blind MP, will never happen here because the parties are simply not inclusive. So what I think the problem is that conception of power, by the elite and the political class is defective. And to that extent, it will produce defective structures, and that is what explains where our political parties are where they are. The people, if you canvass to win votes these days, I'm not interested in how bright or how brilliant your manifesto is. Sometimes it's as little as 5,000 naira, just to, because the political elite have also weaponized poverty, and the political parties, thrive on that. So for me, it's a big project. It's a project that has to begin with maybe reintrospecting, and then recalibrating our social, values. And the political class has to also want to have viral political parties for us to have them. Internal party democracy we talk about, that for me is mitigated. It's not the biggest problem that we have. Because all mass organizations there's something called the iron law of oligarchy, which says that it's almost inevitable that in mass political movements, a few people will dominate. But at least let us transform our political parties, to platforms for debate. Let them stand for something. If I leave the PDP today and join the APC, I don't lose any value. Because there's absolutely no difference between them, except that one is more likely to win a party in a constituency than the other one. So if I live in Lagos now, and I want power, there's absolutely no motivation for me to join the PDP, irrespective of what it stands for. So unless we recalibrate all of these, values, I think our political parties will remain what they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. I think since we have a bit more time, we'll take a few questions. But before we take the questions, can I ask the panelists, what do we do about every party wanting to win at all costs? This partyism, where someone is in charge and he decides that I cannot let my party down. My party must win every seat, even if we have the wrong candidates. Can we quickly, 1 minute, speak to it, and then we can take the questions. The two main actors.
Well, I think already the current system has been bastardized. Like Malam El-Rufai said, there is need for the entire opposition political parties to think a way out of this situation. Otherwise, we may end up with no democracy at all. God forbid. Again, maybe history is about to repeat itself. That was the threat the rest of the other political parties were facing when APC was formed. we have to learn from that historical fact. Otherwise, I don't see us proffering a solution to the current, challenges we are facing politically, electorally, and governance-wise. One aspect that was highlighted by one of the speakers here is about party funding. It all depends on the leadership, of the political parties. I remember when I was in office, from the Northeast, there was no member of the party who was holding any position that was not made to subscribe to the party on a monthly basis. And when a comparative analysis was made, the Northeast was declared as the best because we had everybody contributing, from a councillor to the chairman, to state assembly members, to national assembly members, to appointed government members, whether on boards or parastatals. Now, party funding is extremely important because that strengthens the ability of the party to challenge whatever situation it finds itself. I think this is key as far as political party management is concerned. And I hope we will find this worthy, of implementing in whatever political party we find ourselves, since we are gathered here today to find solutions to some of these challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Loyalty to your party comes after loyalty to God and to your country, I think. So, in my view, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a party member wanting his party to win every seat. But I think the problem that we have is that people want to win by hook or by crook. When I was governor of Kaduna State and we had to conduct local government elections, I went to great lengths to ensure that the elections were free and fair. We even went to China and got electronic voting equipment because I believed that it was important that we knew how well we were doing after being in office for 2-3 years. And the best way to test how well we were doing was to have credible local government elections. But believe me, I was just the majority of one because I was the governor. All my colleagues from CPC and ANPP and ACN said, look, just give us one chance to do to PDP what they have done to us for 16 years. Let us write the result and win everything as well. And I said, no, not on my watch. We lost some local governments, chairmanships, we lost some councillors, but on the whole, we won in more than 3/4 of the state, which I think was okay. And as far as I know, that is the only time in the history of this republic that local government elections were held to be free and fair in Nigeria. I have not heard of anywhere else. Because people just believe that the State Electoral Commission should ensure that every seat is won by the party in power. Some governors have tried a little bit to concede here and there, but the attitude is that, we must take everything. I hope I've answered your question, but I want to build on what His Excellency Vice President Atiku Abubakar said about what the country faces as a challenge, because I don't think this is a challenge for the opposition. Okay? The way and manner opposition political parties are being targeted for destruction and the style and quality of governance in this country today is a national emergency. It should concern everyone. And I think this is a problem for all of us to think about and play a role in changing it. Because as His Excellency said, we stand the risk of losing democracy itself. In the last election, only 26% of registered voters bothered to come out to vote. I'm in a possession of a recent opinion poll that showed that 75% of registered voters in Nigeria do not intend to vote in the next election. That is very dangerous for us. And I think every voice must rise and come out and fight for this democracy. For those of us that are in our 60s, we lived half of our lives under military rule. We know what it is, and we don't want military rule. But we also don't want civilians with behaving like the military in their barbariga and suits. So this is a national emergency. So I appeal to those in opposition, you must coalesce into one political party. We did it in the APC and it can be done again. Okay? But to avoid what has happened to the APC, I think you must ensure that there is internal democracy in your party from day one and insist on it. You must insist that the congresses and convention must be competitive, free and fair. The question of forcing people to step down on the day of the convention and so on should be out of the window. Let people contest and know that they won. And let those that have lost know that they lost. To try again. We must have internal democracy in our parties. And I think, and I found this out when I went back to Kaduna to contest for governor, I realized that the most important qualification for being a political stakeholder, at least in Kaduna State, was to be an illiterate. You are an illiterate, but you are very, very cunning. That's political stakeholder. We have to change it. We must have minimum qualifications. This politics is about leadership. You produce leaders through this political process. You cannot afford to have illiterates, semi-illiterates, cunning people, and so on as your leaders. You will end up with what we have. So the parties must have a standard. The Constitution may say, okay, the Constitution may say that if you have a secondary school certificate or you've attended secondary school, you can be president. Yeah, that's a minimum. But it doesn't mean that the parties cannot have a standard higher than that for the leadership of the parties. Because the leadership, it is the leadership of the parties that vote in congresses and conventions to produce the candidates. So when you have low quality party leaders, they are the delegates, you have low quality candidates. And you end up with a beauty contest consisting of only very ugly women. Okay? Because elections, in my view, are very similar to a beauty contest. You can only vote for the person that is on the ballot. You cannot vote for the best person. You can only vote for a person if he's on the ballot. And it is these so-called delegates, the party leaders, that vote to produce that candidate. So, if they are of low quality, do not expect them to produce a candidate of any better quality. This is a major problem in political parties. Thirdly, I think every party member should pay to be a member of the party. That way he will have a say. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. As I gave the example of APC. We propose 100 Naira a month. And we don't want you to pay 1,200 for 1 year and forget about it because you can afford it. No, we want you to every month to remember that you have a party and you're sending to your party 100 Naira. It's a commitment. It's not the money. It is the commitment. I'm committed to this party that I'm sending 100 Naira a month to it. For the APC, that would have been 18 billion Naira a month, per annum. From the membership alone. Now, if the party has 18 billion Naira from its members, how can any money bag buy up the party? It's also a way of protecting the party from godfathers, from money bags. And I think that should be embedded in any future party from day one. And finally, you must have competitive primaries. Allow everyone who wants to contest, who's ready to buy the form, to contest. Don't tell people to step down. What are you afraid of? Competition is the only way to bring out the best and the brightest. And God knows this country needs it right now. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We'll take a few questions. And I saw the hand of former Governor Rotimi Amaechi up.
Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please, whatever I say, put the blame on Tambua, because we had together prayed the Islam prayer that we should not talk here at all. And it looks as if his prayer didn't work. That's why I'm talking. Exactly. Says my name Ibrahim. I was going to respond to you. You see, all we hear here is typical Nigeria. Typical Nigeria, and you are clapping. That's why politicians get away with anything. They get away with murder because you have short memory. Short memory. None of you here seated can defend the votes. If you have complained, Nigerians have been clapping for you. The only way Shekarau became governor, do you know how? Because people lined up. When they ask how many people are there, they say over 500,000. No, I won't give 500,000. Announce Shekarau. It happened in Ghana. Before the election of the last president. 2 days, a lot of us were called to intervene. But why did they do that? The people were ready to die. You are talking, abusing everybody. Nobody has power and will give it to you. Nobody, not even me. If you want a pastor as president, can get one. The politician is there in Nigeria to steal, to maim, to kill, to remain in power. If you think Tinubu will give it to you, you are wasting your time. So when we speak, we forget history. Unfortunately for me, poverty has made me to be part of the political system from when I left university. I left university in 1987, and I've been part of the process till today. You can't wish me away in the formation of APC. You certainly can't wish me away. You can't wish me away in how APC won election. You can't. But the truth is that if some of us did not stick at our neck, say, PDP, good luck, we want to die with you. When they saw that we were ready to die, what did they do? They gave up power. So we have sweet mouth, we'll talk about it, we'll repeat these things every day. Tomorrow they will call you in Lagos, you will go. Somebody told me in Lagos, said, look, Mr. Amaechi, I said, sir, you see these people that gathered here? I said, yes. We called them transport, this, they came. If tomorrow Tinubu comes with the same transport, they will also come. And the final example is when we are pursuing, APC was registered, and I was scared that, look, they may rig us out. So I got the party to agree that we will carry out a demonstration. They agreed that we will carry out a demonstration. We assembled at, where is that parade ground? Eagle Square. We released some money to go and bring women and all that. I walked in. One time about me, I must go early to know what is going on before people will come. See the women gathered. Guess what they are wearing? Jonathan for president. God bless you.
I can see so many hands up. I need to be partial.
Let me intervene here.
Okay.
That is borrowed from Rivers. Because when Odili was in office as a governor, we went on a rally. The entire stadium was filled to capacity. But before we could finish the rally, everybody had left. We were left alone. Then I asked what happened. He said they were paid for only 2 hours.
Your Excellency, thank you for that. Can we have a few ground rules so that we can have as many questions? We'll only allow people for 1.5 minutes only. 1.5 minutes only, your questions. Let a lady speak for once. Inclusion.
Thank you so much, Excellencies. I think I just want to talk about the point that was made by former Vice President as well as Malam El-Rufai that the party, one is an emergency situation, and the second is the fact that we may not have a democracy anymore. What's going on now with the point that was made about to ensure that the opposition itself is non-existent anymore, and even increasingly they themselves have not met as a political party, suggests to me that we may end up in a situation where we don't even have political parties in 2027, because the internal implosion, even within the ruling party itself, will lead to a situation where that emergency becomes even more dire than we need. We may find. People may wake up in the party and find out, oh, there's no opposition. We've killed all the oppositions. We've finished with Labour. We've finished with PDP. So we are all inside the APC, opposition and non-opposition. We are fighting ourselves inside the APC. And meanwhile, the APC has not even met to even have an understanding of what the kind of democracy of the future should be. Consequently, this is a problem and an emergency largely above what I think we should even be reducing to the level of political parties and what the political actors can do. I think this is a more fundamental question about what the future of the democracy itself is, and it's not something to be left to politicians or political parties. It's something much larger than that, and I think that's where my concern comes from.
Thank you very much. Can I call Dr. Indabawa to speak?
Your Excellency, the moderator, permit me to stand on existing protocols. His Excellency, the former Vice President Amaechi made reference to very touching, serious party matters at the heart of any attempt to form broad-based political party that will uproot to borrow from the likes of Mal Nasru, rudderless APC government. But there are issues that are germane, some of which have been adequately dealt with by particularly His Excellency Malam Nasir about internal democracy. I think the nature of the transition we had to this democratic dispensation was itself done in such a way that most Nigerians had conceived democracy very wrongly as civilianization of governance. Democracy is far beyond ritual elections at intervals. Democracy has to be a cultural issue. And that is what makes internal democracy germane to survival of any party. The worst lie anybody can tell is to tell a lie to himself. As members of the political class, all of us are guilty. We have been telling ourselves bloody lies. We say we are committed to democracy. By the way we run each of the political parties from 1998 to date suggests the contrary. Because we have upgraded the so-called value of consensus building over and above competition, like Malam Nasir rightly captured. And without that, you cannot have democracy. Parties are instruments of recruitment into leadership positions. And if you want to have people who run this democracy and run a democratic system, then the parties must themselves be democratic. You cannot give what you do not have. It's a simple rule. And so, that's number one. Number two,
you have
the issue of
left.
Party discipline. Party discipline has not been discussed, but I thought it is fundamental. You recall in the First Republic, Chief Awolowo's action group expelled serving Premier Akintola to strengthen party supremacy and party discipline. In Second Republic, When we are the tax of People's Redemption Party, Malamine Kano expelled Abubakar Remy and Bolaro Musa, then governors of Kano and Kaduna State, and the party survived. Waziri Ibrahim of GNPP expelled Governor Goni of Old Borno and Barde of Old Gongola, and the party survived. Now, you cannot have a party where there is no discipline. We give ourselves some rules. We say as a party, we are committed to those rules that will govern us. We have procedures. We have established due process within party. We don't follow them. Somebody will come and openly canvass for candidates of other parties. Nothing happens to him. Nothing happens at the other party. Somebody will wake up for whatever reason and will make proclamation 3-4 years before election to say, I will be committed to the candidate of the party I'm supposed to be opposing. Like it is happening now in PDP. My party, very sadly. Somebody will wake up and say he is committed to a Tinubu presidency. One is a member of the People's Democratic
Please
Party.
round up.
And nothing happens.
Thank you.
Now, we cannot have that. Then the issue of funding. I think it all borders on the commitment that members have in the shared vision. It's a false shared vision that unites members of the party. You see, somebody made the point, and I think it's very beautiful, that the parties as they are presently constituted are not distinguishable by the big ideas that each one of them represents. Governor Kaede and some of us who were students in the 80s in UK will recall, we are active members of the Labour Party. Why? Because we have shared vision. We believed Labour represented our vision, our ideological dispositions, and so on. And virtually all African students in the 80s, in the 90s, will work for Labour Party. We did under Neil Kinnock and others. Kaede was here, wanted him to run for councillorship, one of the counties in London. He refused. But because we had shared vision, we are committed to the party. So if you have shared vision, you will be able to now establish ownership. And then no amount of money will be too big for you. NEPU, in the First Republic, under later Aminu Kano, was funded by the masses of the people who were members of the party because they believed in the shared vision represented by the NEPU.
Thank you very much.
In 1979, Madam, please can I run? In 1979, when we were young tax, these my friends, Malamine Kano ran for president. The party wanted to raise 10 million naira to prosecute the presidential campaign in the then 19 states of Nigeria. 10 million naira. And the rule was enacted that all party members may contribute not more than 10 naira. You contribute 1 naira minimum, but no more than 10 naira. People were queuing up to come and say, okay, take 10 naira for me, 10 naira for my wife, 10 naira for my son, I have 5 grandchildren, and so on. People funded Aminu Kano's campaign because they had shared vision. Now, unless we have a shared vision, a party that is ideological, we cannot be able to mobilize mass funding. You cannot be able to stop people who have money to fund it. And the contradictions will continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take just 2 more because our time is far spent. Please restrict yourself to 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, His Excellencies, other participants. I'd like to just say, bottom line, politics in Europe, the Americas, is bedrocked on ideology. Ideology is the basis for forming political parties. You either lean to the left or you lean to the right. That is the basis for which you have people in the UK who have generations of members in Labour Party or in the Conservative Party. Same as in the US, you have people who are generations of family members who have been Republicans or Democrats. It's based on their leanings ideologically. We don't have that in Nigeria. It might have started in the 70s and in the 80s, but that is all gone. If we want to sit here today and talk about, I was going to say also that it's that ideological belief in what you are doing that makes you take deep into your pocket and finance it. When there's no such ideology, there's no basis. If we want to go into discussing those issues now, in today's reality in Nigeria, we're wasting our time. Politics in Nigeria has been devoid of ideology, so what do we need to do? We need to form another, if you want to call it, special purpose vehicle today. Win the next election first, then we can create an ideological base for that political party. Anything outside of that is just a waste of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please restrict yourself to 2 minutes.
Thank you, distinguished Senator. Your Excellencies, my name is Comrade Babatunde Ali. I'm privileged to be the National Secretary of the People's Redemption Party, PRP. I'm representing my national chairman here, Malam Falalu. Sirs, I have just 1 minute. Some of the things I would have loved to mention, he spoke in that direction. But as I watch this seat, I see a repeat of what I have seen wherever I've been privileged to sit with leaders of our people like this. Some of the issues we're actually supposed to be sober about, and in fact shedding tears, we will laugh. And we will walk out of here. I'll leave every leader, particularly on this seat, with this message. Sirs, in the next 5 years or 10 years, you won't be sitting here. It will be someone else. Is this the nation you want to leave for us? Is this the Nigeria in the next 10, 20 years? May you be alive to see what will happen. You won't die. You won't die. Is this the Nigeria you want to see when you are heading for your grave? I won't go into other political rhetorics. It has become something we discuss over and over. And I like to challenge this center. Don't invite us next year if this is the kind of discussion we will continue to have. We've been having it. I appreciate you all, sir.
Thank you.
And may God help you this time around
Thank
to
you very
lead
much.
us in a place where the youth of this nation, they just mentioned the name of Malam Aminu Kano. We will point to you. I thank God.
Thank you
I
very
met
much.
someone like that. I can say today, I thank God I met Balarabe.
Thank you.
I learned from him, and I thank God for what I have become.
Thank
I
you
will
very
leave you, man, with the first thing Malam Balarabe told me when I first met him. He pointed his hand to me, and he said, if you want to be, that was about 15 years ago, if you want to be a member of PRP, 1, you must have a job that feeds you. 2, I've never had such. You must feed your family. He said 3, if you have left, use it to support the party.
Thank you
thank
very
you
much. Thank you. I will take you. Can I? Yeah. We'll close. I think you should please restrict yourself because we need to round up and close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe today is very historical, and we must thank God for this event and for everyone that is here to help us shape the destiny of this nation.
Thank you.
Nigeria is in the path of recovery. I took a note of, in 2019, 178,459 guns, weapons disappeared from police armory. And of course, we later, in 13th of January 2022, there was a testimony by a director of XSS who also stated that several weapons are still missing from the armed formations. And I think in the course of our articulations today, we are looking at how we can, in the course of building a culture, a political culture that will amalgamate, aggregate energy, intellectual energy to safeguarding the future, see how we can begin to stimulate the sense of sensibilities of many Nigerians who have been weaponized through poverty to understanding that once they make themselves available as tools or foot soldiers to making use of these guns to shoot one another, they make democracy very impossible for us to achieve. It's impossible for us to understand too, sir, and ma, there's a need for us to understand that I represent people with disabilities, and we are into civil society, and we believe that we all Nigerians must work together to ensure that meritocracy is enthroned. Because the more characters we have that are interested and patriotic enough to help build the Nigeria of our dream, the less people with disability will have in future. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. And that will be the last one. And you have only 1 minute. because I need to give the panel 1 minute
Thank you
each to
very much, Your
round up.
Excellencies, distinguished participants. My name is Chibuzo Okereke. I'm a proud alumnus of the Center LSD School of Leadership. And my question I will direct to His Excellency, the former Vice President. And it's about the notion of rubber stamp National Assembly. And you made reference that you wrote a letter at the National Assembly regarding electoral reform, and you submitted it to a committee. And the question is that the best strategy? Because in the institutional design of the National Assembly, that is where you have caucuses and the party politics is made manifest. As a leader of a political party, is that the best strategy, of engaging the opposition members in parliament to be able to achieve your goal? Because as we speak today, the opposition coalition caucus in the National Assembly, from the House of Rep to the Senate, is particularly House of Rep, is actually more than 50%. And the National Assembly is a place where if you take a decision by voice vote, they can actually move for a divide. And the point is that the opposition members in the National Assembly seem not to have leadership that is galvanizing, driving them to make change, the kind of change that you desire.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, you will respond to him and use that to round up your 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Let me respond to what you claim about, the opposition parties in the National Assembly. Immediately after the elections, results were announced and members emerged before even the National Assembly was officially inaugurated. I invited members of the House of Representatives from all the political parties to my house. They all came. I said, look, I want you to take control of the leadership of the House of Reps. Because if you all work together, you will produce the leadership of the House of Reps because of your number. Whether you are Labour, whether you are AP, whether whatever. And they promised me they were going to do it. Again, we went to the Governors Forum in Bauchi, where we elected the chairman of the Governors Forum for PDP. Again, I called the members of the National Assembly, particularly House of Reps, and reminded them about the meeting we had in Abuja in my house. Make sure when you are electing your leaders, you conform to what we agreed. They went, and they were given money, and they all dispersed. They all dispersed. Yes, and they lost everything, but they took the money. What else? I was not in a position to expel any member. I was not in a position to suspend any member, but I have shown them leadership, which they declined. I want to say here publicly, I met with a political party leadership in the present opposition. And they told me bluntly that this government gives them 50 million each. Where do we go from here? Which means if we are not careful, we are talking to some of you here, but you are recipients of the 50 million you are getting from the federal, from the APC government. You may take exception to that, but I was told by a high-ranking member of an opposition party. So, do we really want to fight for democracy? If we don't, we all go back to our homes. But if we do, I have been in this struggle for over 30 years. An attempt was made on my life. I escaped. I went on exile. I came back. But I never gave up. My businesses were taken over. I'm still surviving. So you need to make up your mind. I'm not doing it like I used to tell some of you, most of you here are not more than my children. I'm not doing it for myself. For me, I have lived my life. I'm doing what I am doing today because of you. Thank you very much.
I don't know. Maybe I should form a party and get that 50 million. God knows I need it. It's the best way to round up. But seriously, ladies and gentlemen, our country is at a crossroads. And it is time for all those that care about Nigeria, young and old. Those of us that are old are concerned about what we are leaving behind. Okay? And we have children and grandchildren. And the only reason why some of us are still doing this is because of that. But it is not something only leaders can do. We must have, as Professor Olukoshi said, we must have a political community. People must be worried about what is happening in Nigeria and not just concerned about getting 5,000 Naira to vote on election day. Because you'll suffer for 4 years or 8. I think the earlier we all come to terms with that and put God, our country, and first before ourselves, we can just keep talking to ourselves. Thank you very much.
For me?
Yes. This is not working. Okay, it's working.
For me, my parting shot will be, something that is very scary to me. I see the Nigerian project as a tragedy of the commons. And that would be my answer to your question about, this win at all cost. And what bothers me is that the power elites themselves, our political leaders is either they don't have a sense of their own enlightened self-interest, or they are not taking sufficient cognizance of it. The way the political elites, run this country. I mean, if, for instance, democracy, God forbid, comes to an end, the greatest casualty will be the political elites. So it is incumbent on them, to realize that there is a common denominator. There are certain issues that needs to be insulated from partisan politics. That it is in their own collective self-interest to remain as elite. That certain things don't go below, a modicum of, and that for me is either they don't realize it or they just don't, take sufficient cognizance of it. And that will be my parting shot.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ame, High Chief Ame.
I think I want to create, try to clear an impression by His Excellency when he talked about insult. I try to talk here passionately because I've been in the system. I might not be in government, but I've been in the cycle of party politics for a long time. Anybody who knows me here, who are nodding their head, can tell you. By 2015, when we wanted to contest for IPOB election, I formed a committee headed by Senator Mujishola Akifenwa, late today, as chairman of that committee. And then our father, the SDP national chairman at the time, El-Rufai, when we got to INEC to conduct election, INEC brought out a new list and said the 2 people are no longer national chairmen. So I've lost 2 votes. These are elder statements. So we've seen things. I was a member of the pioneer member with Senator Ben Obi when we formed the National Peace Committee. We've seen some things that have happened. And I'm telling you how powerful INEC is to undermine our elections. I know what they have done behind the closed doors. I've seen things. I was going home on 2019 when the election was postponed for 2 weeks, and the APC was on the INEC chairman, and he called me, and I drove back to him, and we talked and we went to National Conference Center to defend the the onslaught of the war that was coming. We've seen things. If we don't correct INEC, if we don't unburden the commission, I can't say more. If I go deep, look as if I've had conversation with people in private, in their private offices, and I'm discussing it in public. We must unburden INEC. We must follow Justice Lemu's electoral offenses panel report, Justice electoral reform panel report. We must also follow the former Senate President. It is electoral panel report has already suggested that we unbundle the commission. If you look at the Liberia style, alone, you do not have a commission that is so overburdened by so many work. If INEC is responsible for conducting election, let them go and conduct election. Let's have political party registration and management committee, council, or the parastata. Let's also have delineation and other department. And then let's have election offenses tribunal, commission, where these electoral matters are treated. As I speak to you today, if you carry electoral violence in the state that is controlled by one party, that the party is in governor, and as soon as the party is elected into office, the Attorney General of the state, who has the authority, I'm not a lawyer, but I will tell you, they have authority of what they call nolli prosecute. They will go to the court and withdraw that, forget about the case, we are no longer interested. So how do you deal with that? These are challenges of what we've experienced in the last 20 years being in party management. So the challenges are real. And if we don't arrest it from trying to unbundle the commission and the overpowerful element of the chairman, I mean, there are two other statements, and they said they are no longer chairman of political party.
Thank you very much.
So we must resolve these issues.
Thank you very much. Prof, do you have anything to say for just 1 minute so we can leave?
I have an entire lecture to deliver again. No, but this has been really heartwarming. And I think, Governor Rufai, what frightens me when I wake up every day and look at the state of our nation, it's not just the loss of democracy, but probably the loss of the country as a whole. And, you know, we are faced with the real potentiality of outright collapse. And the consequences will not be just for those who wreck the system, but for all of us. Where are we going to go to? 200 and something million Nigerians. And it's also what keeps many of our neighbors, who are our well-wishers, sleepless at night. Imagine Benin Republic being overwhelmed by Nigerian refugees because the system has simply, the center has simply collapsed in our country. And I think it underscores the sense of emergency. But let me just add very quickly that in terms of alliance politics, we've had experiences in the history of our country from the First Republic. Maybe the center, OTIV and others, can also complement what we have heard from the Vice President and you, Governor Rufai, by carrying out a study to look at ways in which we can avoid history repeating itself. Because even if you form an alliance of opposition parties today and they take power from APC tomorrow, what is to say they will not behave like APC, right? So we need to find a way of my final observation, and a lot has been said about INEC, and my mind just went to India. A lot of the change, and India's Electoral Commission is as powerful as Nigeria's INEC. It does everything. But more than that is the decision which a succession of election commissioners in India have taken to use their position to change political culture in that country. There is no time to go into it, but if you look at the autobiography of Mr. Qureshi, the immediate past election commissioner, there's a list of many things they did as election commission, not because there was somebody prompting them, but just simply saying, we need to sanitize the system. We find you distributing milk and sugar during the campaign, we disqualify you. And they have been backed by the Supreme Court of India, which says that until an election is over, if you bring a case against the commission to the Supreme Court, it's not going to be entertained, right? So that enables the Election Commission to play a role in addressing some of the elements of political culture. And I hasten to add that that was also true for the United States. For all the bad press that J. Edgar Hoover had, he played a key role in cleaning out corruption in the political system in the United States. Read his autobiography also. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And riding on that, let me just round up by saying there are some three takeaways. One, that democracy is currently in jeopardy, and that we must do everything to ensure that we pull back the rein so that we still have a country. We have also agreed that the political parties are veritable vehicles to drive the process, and they need to be strengthened. They need to be reformed. Not like my friend said that a political party is a vehicle. When you are going out and the vehicle breaks down, all you need to do is come out and get the next vehicle to take you to the destination. We need to be able to look after this particular vehicle and ensure that it takes us to the destination. We have also agreed that the only answer to this degradation is a grand, broad-based coalition that will bring everybody together and commitment to the cause that the political party will be formed and run properly so that we will not find ourselves in the pitfalls of the past. And on this, I want to thank the entire panel, especially our father, our leader, the former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, Dr. Nasir El-Rufai, High Chief Ame, and of course, Dr. Adireni. Professor Lugoshi, you have led us well. Once again, thank you very, very much for having us.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Very quickly, the panel will need to take a group photograph. So please.